Well, I'm happy to be here. Charlotte is the one who invited me to come, and she's not here tonight. I think she's got some family help.
Husband has issue, yeah.
Husband, and so, but I'm grateful that she asked, and I'm excited to be here, and well, hello. And I just thought what I would do tonight is, I may be trying to fit too much in, we'll see. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I started with art, because that kind of feeds into my message that I want to share tonight. And then I'll just go over a few little PowerPoint design. Did it turn off?
No, it's just a little bit.
Oh, she's turned it down, okay. I'll just go over a few little PowerPoint bullet points about some art principles, because it's easier for me to make sure that I get that done while I'm not painting. It's hard for me to paint and talk at the same time. But even with that, still feel free to ask questions during any time. I just want this to be kind of an open discussion. So, as Rob mentioned, I grew up in North Ogden, and my parents were artistic. My dad was a landscape architect, and he is the first one who taught me how to draw in perspective. But I didn't really have any formal training at all until I got to college. But I loved drawing. I loved it so much. I loved drawing horses, and I loved drawing flowers, and I would watercolor, and my mother gave us lots of opportunities to be creative. And so I felt as a young girl that I had a little bit of some talent, but I didn't really know how to do anything with it, or that it was even a viable possibility for me to do that as a career. And so when I was a senior in high school, I took an interior design class, and I loved it, and it was something I was good at. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll do that in college, which I did. But I secretly wanted to be a fine artist. And I took one art history class where, in the building that was not in the design building, but it was in the fine art building. And I would go to class, and I would see all of the artists, all the students' work up in the halls. And I'd walk by, and I'd think, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. And it just didn't even occur to me that I could, that I didn't know how, I just thought if you had it, you had it, and if you didn't, you didn't. So I graduated, and the day I was supposed to walk, I delivered my first baby. So I didn't ever get to walk after all of that. But I spent the next 20, 30 years raising 4 children and focusing on volunteering in church and in schools, but I didn't ever, that creativity part of me never left. And I felt like I always did something creative during all of those times. I taught myself how to knit, I sewed, I crocheted, I did some batik, I did anything you can think of. But during that time, I kept, in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, oh, I wish I could be an artist. I really want to be an artist. And it started to keep building up more and more in me until about the time that some of my children started to leave the home. That desire became so strong that I couldn't ignore it anymore, and I took my first art class, and I was so scared, and I didn't know how to mix color or paints or what brushes to use, and it was this little class at Hobby Lobby, and so the teacher had to walk me through getting paints and brushes, and it was so out of my comfort zone, but that desire was so strong that I was willing to do that, to get out of that, to be uncomfortable. And so really that is, and after that, as some of you here have taken Rob Adamson's class, and because I started that little other class, I started going to art shows and networking and meeting people, and because of that, I found out about plein air painting. When I found out about plein air painting, I was a convert. I thought, this is it. And because of Rob Adamson's class, he really pushed us to submit things to shows. And I remember telling him one time, this painting is not good enough to put in this show. And he said, why not? Just do it. What the heck? And so that became my mantra. What the heck? I'm just going to do it. And I started to set, I remember the first painting I sold, and I thought, oh my word, somebody paid good money for this painting. And that was another motivation for me, and I became all in. And after that course with Rob Adamson, I realized that it took more than just talent. It was a lot of work and practicing every day. And so I did it. I practiced every day. I got out of my comfort zone, and I really believe that that is part of how we can improve our skills. One of the two things. So there are two messages I wanted to really make clear tonight, and one of them is getting out of our comfort zone. And so what does that do for us? Well, I can tell you what it did for me. It gave me more opportunities. I found out about other opportunities to learn and to participate and to show my work, and it provided accountability. I needed to be able to, if I signed up for a show, then I had to be prepared for it, and so those things improved my skills. And then I met wonderful friends. I'm still continuing to meet wonderful friends, and I'm building up a collector base and confidence in my ability to be uncomfortable. So I started to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I really feel that this is a great way to learn more and to improve the skills that we have as artists. So that's my first message. My second message is it's never too late. That first class I took at Hobby Lobby was 8 years ago, and Rob's class was a year later. So that's another message I want to get. And I was almost 51 when I took that first class. So it is something that I think is a mindset that we can accomplish lots of things. Even when we feel like maybe the window has closed, I kind of felt like maybe it was too late for me to do that, but I realized I worked hard and I got out of my comfort zone, then I could do some things that I wanted to do. And so I'm grateful for that. Have any of you read Big Magic by Melissa Gilbert? So it's a great book and you should read it, but one of the things that really hit home to me was this quote: "After a certain age, no matter how you've been spending your time, you have very likely earned a doctorate in living." And I love that. We have doctorates in living. If you are still here, if you have survived this long, it is because you know things. We need you to reveal to us what you know, what you have learned, what you have seen and felt. If you are older, chances are strong that you may already possess absolutely everything you need to possess in order to live a more creative life. Accept the confidence to actually do your work. But we need you to do your work. Whether you are old or young, you're young or old, we need your work in order to enrich and inform our own lives. And when I read that, I thought, the life experiences that we all go through, no matter what age we are, provides information for our own art. It provides the feelings that we can add to that art. And so whatever experiences we have when we start, when we don't, those are the things that we can contribute as well as our skills. So with that, it's never too late, and get out of our comfort zone. So let's go over just a few principles of art, and do any of you, let's just maybe throw things out there. What are some things that you feel like are foundational principles of art? Value. Design, great.
A good drawing.
Yeah, good drawing, great. Anything else? Okay, well, let's go for a few things here. So value, shape and drawing, temperature and color, and edge control and brushwork. So let's just briefly go over this. I've got just a few minutes before I need to start the painting. And value is light and dark. We all know that. It's the light and dark of what we see outside. So I took this painting, or this photo, just last Saturday, and this is just another plug for painting from life. If I were to paint strictly from this photograph, the foreground in this photo is way, way darker than it was in real life. And so when we're outside painting and trying to get, we're trying to get the correct values when we're outside painting. Cameras kind of just, especially the shadows, I think, and if you had a good camera and you knew how to work it, you could probably adjust all that, but I don't. I just pull out my camera and I take photos. And so we need to understand that when we're out there, some of these things start to happen.
Jane, so on the screen, was the dark a little bit closer to that in real life, would you say? Because that's lighter than your photo on your screen.
Yeah, no, that's even way too dark.
Okay.
So let's see how this is. Okay, oh, I see. Okay, yeah, so right there, that is all, that's still way too dark. But so this is another photo. You can see it's just a few steps away, and I don't know why it worked this time and it didn't, but I know enough to know that this is what it really mostly looks like outside. And look how much lighter that is from that to that. So the shadows, in the shadows you can still see form all through here, and so that's what we want to be able to see form in the shadows. And it's on the ground plane also. So even those shadows on the ground plane are going to be a little bit lighter because they're on that ground plane. But right here, these shadows in these pine trees, those are still way too dark to be correct. So that's one thing that is really things that we look for when we're painting outside, because the camera just can't capture it. So let's look at Sargent. He, this is not a very good photo either. I don't think these are probably all that dark either. But he has grouped his dark values together. They're mostly all touching here. And he has one here and one here and some back here. But generally, they're all kind of close together. They're not scattered out all over the painting. So this is a really nice value composition. And when we break things down to black and white, it's a lot easier to see because color can really confuse the values with us, in our eyes. So, okay. So here are a couple other examples. Scott Christensen, I put it into black and white, and the other thing that's tricky is the uprights of trees, the light side of the tree and the shadow side of the tree. Sometimes we're outside and we think that light side of the tree is so light, and we make it, the value way too light. But look at his value on this tree. You know clearly the sun is hitting it, but it is still darker than that back hill. And it's just a really great silhouette of kind of the darker values of the uprights. But that is not even close to this value or this value or this value up here. And have you all, do you know the different values of the angles? Okay, so the lightest value is what? The sky, then what? Ground, then what? The slants, right, and then what? Uprights, right. Perfect. And then you'll have your darkest dark just be, the dark accents will be just in a few places, and then your highlights will just be in a few places. So most of the painting's going to be kind of in those middle ranges. Here's T.A. Lawson. Same thing. When I look at this blue sky, I don't think it's hard for me to tell the values still. And I think that value of that sky is pretty dark. But when you turn it black and white, look how light that is, right there. And the shadow side of the cloud is still very light compared to the rest. This is also, I think, a really great design too. It's that great silhouette right there, it's really just 3 values. So that's a quick thing on value. Okay, let's go to shape and drawing. When I decide, once we have kind of figured out what the values are going to be, then we need to start thinking in terms of abstract shapes, or at least I do. And this is another thing that Rob Avinson always said. He always says, paint what you see first, last, and what you see last first. Does that make sense to anybody? Can anybody explain that?
Background first.
The background first? Could be, yeah. So what I think that means is that he is, when we look at outside or we're looking at something that we want to paint, we see all of the details first. We see all the leaves on the trees, we see all of the grass, blades of grass, and those are the things we need to get rid of until the very, very end. So we want to flatten everything out and kind of think in terms of shapes and not things. So don't think, I'm not thinking, oh, there's a tree. I'm thinking, oh, there's a shape right here. And I'm going to look for the light side and the dark side of that tree. So let's do this again with these other 2 paintings. So I did this in Procreate. I don't have any of these other little values that create form or think. It's just a very abstract shapes. But if you can kind of do that and keep the values correct, then once that's done, you can start creating the form and adding a little bit more of the detail. Here's T.A. Lawson's, just really flat. I just did it really quickly. It's not great, but you can see the light side and the shadow side of that tree. Light side and shadow side of the mountain. And just graphic shapes. Here's Clyde Aspavig. Same thing. When you turn it into black and white, it really becomes clear what the values are, and then you can break it up into just flat planes.
So you paint flat plane first.
Flat planes first, yeah. And then once we do that, then we can start to create form, and there are lots of different ways to do that. But one of the ways that I like to do it is with just the direction of your brush. So as you're painting here, you can see, I picked this painting because you can see the brush strokes really well. So this brush stroke is going this direction. This plane of the side of this mountain is going this way. This hill is, the brush strokes are going this way. The brush strokes are going this way here. This is the other plane of that mountain. The brush strokes are going this way, then the brush strokes go this way again. It's going up and around the curve. The ground right here is, the brush strokes are going straight. Trees are going a little bit more up and down. He does his ground plane brush strokes here like this. Some people don't like to do that. They like to go up and down for the foreground, but that's probably just a preference. So that's one way to create form once we do that. And then there's also temperature that can help create form. So yeah, okay. So this is Scott Christensen, and temperature is I think temperature shifts within the value shape. Remember so the shapes that we have in the very beginning, we can change this, we can shift the temperatures within that shape as long as we keep the values very, very tight and close. So you can see here, this shadow side of the tree has lots of warm and cool. It's not a really good photo, sorry. But the values are all pretty close. You can still tell this is all the shadow side. So they're just subtle shifts of temperature. This is a little bit cooler than right in here. This is really hot because there's not a lot of light getting into there, so it's gonna be warm, reflected light coming up from the ground, and this is on the shadow side. This is going to be a little bit warmer because in the shade, in the shadow, it's getting reflected from the blue sky. How are we doing? Oh, we are taking way too long. This is Josh Clarida's form great. So the form also, edge work also helps create form. And here, if you squint down, you can see those flat, you can see the flat plane of that mountain. And this is the shadow side, this is the light side. But when you open your eye, when you kind of focus, look at all of these shifts of color. There's a little bit of a cooler red here. This is a really hot, well, this is a hot yellow, a little bit of a cooler yellow. And so he knows how the form of that hill is formed. The color will depend on that form and what's hitting it, if it's the light hitting it or if it's the sky hitting it. I don't know if that makes sense, if what I'm saying makes sense. But. And then also the edge work really helps create form too. So you have the cast shadows always have a what kind of an edge? Sharp edge. So cast shadows always have a sharp edge. And then a form shadow, in other words, when it's kind of rounding around, changing colors and changing temperature to go back into that shadow, that right there is going to be a really soft edge that helps create that form. So are there any questions about this? Okay. So, and then thick and thin paint. Let's see, do I have anything else? Oh, this is some more, we don't have time for that, but this is more form. This is edge work. So he's really sharpened these edges right here in the focal point. There's highest contrast here. And then out on the edges, the edge work is, the edges are a lot softer. So the focus is going to be coming in here and not being distracted out here. And again, look how form, you just know what that is. This is the cast shadow, that's straight. This is the overlap, which is a hard edge. And then you kind of roll that form around with a soft edge and temperature shifts. And then lastly, really just in all four of these categories, we need variety. We don't want to have any sort of symmetry. We want small, medium, and large shapes, lots of variety in our value, in our temperature, and our edge work and control. So, any questions? That was a really fast thing, but I'm afraid I'm not going to have time to paint too much. So, all right. Well, with that, I will start my demo, and we'll have to do a few things to switch. Oh, thanks. Okay. Okay, I've gone back and forth today between what I wanted to paint, but I think I've decided I'm just going to do a barn. And we'll see how it goes. Okay. Someone's using this. All right. So sometimes I will tone my canvas, and I use iron oxide red to do that, and I think I'll do that today. Usually on the small paintings I don't do it, but on the larger paintings I do. But maybe because of time I won't actually do it. I won't do it today, so.
Gina, you may want to move that mic to the center of your apron.
Oh, my hair is getting in the way. Is that better?
Probably so.
Okay, thank you. Oh boy, that was really noisy. Okay, so I'll probably go for about a half hour and then take a little bit of a break, and then I'll start again, so. This barn is down the street from my house, so I painted it a lot, and I just love it. I keep thinking it would be a great studio someday. Already, but I can tell that's right in the middle, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna just extend it a little bit more. That's really weird. I see me going the opposite direction.
Yeah. Yeah, blew me away, like, is she left-handed?
Yeah. So even with trees, and I'm still not very good at trees, but we need to keep symmetry out of trees as well, so I'm not gonna have it just be symmetrical. I'm gonna try and make it so that it's kind of ski-lumpus, but still balanced. So the tip of the tree, if I drew a line, just like the figure, I would draw a line down the middle of the tree. I don't want the tip of the highest point of the tree to be right in the middle. I want it to be off-center a little bit. And sometimes if the shapes of the real trees are not what you like, then just redesign it. That option. I've got 2 trees, so I'm, in the photo, I think I'll probably make 3. have tangents, so this tree's gotta go higher than that. This tree needs to go up a little bit higher, so it's not a tangent right there. So, okay, so now I'm gonna make that tree a little higher. No, I'm not going to. Let's- So now I'll probably just, I really like my transparent oxide red or red oxide, whatever. I love it for the warm shadows at the base of trees. And actually in the doorway of this barn is gonna be, so I'm gonna just kind of put that in there. As soon as I mix white with this or any other color, it becomes opaque and you ruin your transparency. So I try and keep this pretty clean and I do it first. So I can kind of, don't have to worry about it. So I'll do the and just start creating those flat shapes now. So that really hot heat, dark accent's going to be at the bottom and the base of the tree because it's going to be reflecting the ground. It's not going to get a lot of light from the sky or from the sun. Will somebody kind of give me a warning when it's
You have 20 minutes at least.
okay?
That wasn't your warning.
Okay. I like to start with my darks first as well. So shadow sides of things first. Kind of, sometimes it's not a step faster or what. because this is going to be kind of coming, the light is going to be coming off from the left, there's not going to be a lot of shadow in the tree. Most of the space will be in light. So I'm just gonna put a few little things in here, and then I'll come back in later with some of these dark shadows once I get. Try and keep it flat. Keep it flat first.
Joanne, are you good for a question?
Sure, go ahead.
So one of the biggest things that I struggle with is figuring out my warm and cool shadows. And you said the sun and the sky are going to create cool.
I-
Is that what you said?
That's wrong if I said that.
Oh, so the sky would create cool.
Yeah.
And, but you were saying this transparent red oxide that's on the base there,
Mhm.
that is a warm shadow
Mhm.
because it has a little bit of the sun because it's on the flat ground. I don't know.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I didn't explain that very well. No, it's okay. So, so if you have this darkest accent in tree is not going to be lit by the sun. And it probably won't be lit by the sky either because it's inside all of the foliage. And so the light that is coming into it will be coming up from the ground, which is usually very warm,
Reflected sun.
reflected from the ground. Does that make sense?
Yes. So the shadows in the trees are the vertical things that you're putting in.
Yes.
How do you know when to do cool and when to do warm?
You know what, that's a really, really great question. And one of the things that I think also helps me too is I'm always thinking, especially if I'm outside, if I'm looking and comparing things next to each other, I'll say, is this redder, bluer, or yellower? Basically, every color has red, blue, and yellow in it. And so, like for instance, so this side right here is going to be in shadow. So if, first of all, you need to decide where your light source is coming from. Is the sun, where is the sun coming from? Is it a cloudy day? Is it not a cloudy day? And let's just assume it's a sunny day, and we're gonna have the light source is gonna be both from the sky and the sun. So for instance, let's take this tree right here. So this tree, the sun's coming from this direction. And so the planes and the sides of the tree that are getting the direct sunlight will be that warm. And then as the form starts to turn, as the tree form starts to turn up to the top of the tree, or the top of this little point right here, or however the forms are in the tree, then it's not getting so much direct light, it's getting light from the sky. So the top is going to be, and the sky is blue, and so it's going to be a cooler green than it would if it was coming directly from the sun. Does that make sense? And so, one of the things that was really, it was hard for me to comprehend. It took me a long time to figure out this light source stuff, and reflected light, where it's coming from, where it's not, and one of the things that I think is interesting to know, at least for me, it kind of clicked, is that in the shadow forms, it's not ever going to be lit by the sun because it's in shadow, right? But it's still getting lit by something. So what would it be getting lit by?
Reflected light.
Reflected light from what?
Ground.
It depends on where it's coming from.
Could be from the sun.
It could be from the sky, right?
Mhm.
So down here, it's going to be, it will be reflected from the ground plane in the shadow. So this part of the shadow will be a little bit warmer, but as the shadow moves up a little bit, it's not going to get that reflected light from the ground anymore. It's going to start getting light from the sky. So it's going to be a little bit cooler up here than it would down there. Am I explaining that? Okay. Okay. So on a cloudy day, it kind of messes everything up. But it's the same sort of thing. And that's one reason why I was talking about the shadows in the photos, is because you can't see all that form in the photograph. And man, there's some great temperature shifts in the shadows too. And when that clicked in my brain, I thought, oh my goodness, that's right. It's not just, we're going to create form in the shadows as well. This tree, once I get to it, or in a larger painting maybe, there will be warm and cools within the shadow too, as well as on the light side. So the key is to just keep that value as you're adding red or warmer, or red or blue or yellower within the value mass. So I'm not going to call this a tree anymore. I'm going to call it a shape. This is a shape. So within this value shape, this light side, there can be warm and cool all throughout there. And it's all relative. So and they'll all be green. You'll have some redder greens, you'll have some bluer greens, and that's what will help create that form. And I don't necessarily do that well myself, but it's And I think another reason why you'd want to get these values laid out flat first, it's really easy, especially for me, to start working on this tree. Oh, I'm so excited about this tree. So I'm going to start creating form right now. But then what happens is, once you start laying in these other colors, you'll realize, oh man, the value's not quite right. So I'm always kind of adjusting everything. And that's why not getting too much in there first until you have everything laid out. At least that works for me. It may not work for everybody, which is totally fine. But for me, it helps my brain figure out these values.
That's the outline of the shadow of the tree.
Yes. Yeah. So let's get. Yeah, if I say something that doesn't make sense, it's probably because I said it wrong. The worm is this being reflected. The sun will always be warm. The light coming from the sun will always be warm. then oftentimes what I will do too is I'll mix it on my palette and I'll think it's just the right value and the right color and temperature and I'll lay it down and it's not. So I'll just put a little dot to check it. And right there I can tell it's gonna be a little too dark, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more white and a little bit more yellow. And every time you add white, it cools off whatever you're mixing. So I always add a little bit of something warm so it won't look chalky. So I'll put a little red and yellow in there. Got a little hair in there. Brighter. Light or dark. And I'm always also scraping, especially in the beginning. I don't want to have a lot of thick paint on there, so then it starts messing everything up. So I'll scrape it off. So in order to create the shadow of this yellow barn, I want to keep the local color, or in other words, the color of the barn in the shadow color too. But I'm just going to add a little bit of some blue to darken it up, a little bit of red, a cool red. Might be too dark. Let's see. Okay, so these colors are, I don't think, those aren't quite, oh, maybe it's okay. I'll let it sit for a minute.
Jan,
Yes,
will you tell us what colors you have on your palette?
yeah, sure. So I just have a warm and cool of each of the primaries. So I have, this is titanium white, this is cad yellow medium, cad lemon, cad red medium, alizarin crimson, transparent oxide red, ultramarine blue, and I have a little bit of some phthalo green and a little bit of phthalo blue that I'll sometimes use to get to colors a little bit faster. And that's what I use, well, and then this is, you can't see it in the video, but that's cad orange. And sometimes I'll pull that into a little bit. So I'm looking at this right now and I think this, it's not really reading as a shadow very well. So I think I'm going to darken the shadow just a little bit because it is an upright plane. And just see what that will do. And I also will sometimes use Neo McGill as a medium. sandstone a lot too. But with things like the sky and clouds and snow, I really want to be careful to keep my brush clean. Otherwise, I'd like my brush to have a mix of lots of paint in there. It adds some color harmony. And I find that that's really, when you can mix, when you can use a limited palette, it kind of forces you to try and find the right color. And I can't remember what I was gonna say. What was I saying?
With a limited palette.
Limited palette kind of forces you to mix the colors. And which will also create more of color harmony in your painting. Okay, I'm getting too detailed already, so I'm gonna move on here. So I think I'm gonna do the light side of this roof first. I think for me, it's easier to do on things like this, objects, to do the light side first, because then I can make a better shadow color rather than going the opposite way. So I guess that's an exception when I don't lay down the dark first.
Jean, your green trees, do you have any white in those greens yet?
I do have a little bit in the.
Just a little?
Mhm,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, there's that, and now I'm gonna darken it a little bit. If this were a bigger painting, I would, once I come back and do the form, even on something like a roof, I would add a blue up here at the top and slowly have it be a little bit warmer, because that top is gonna be lit by the sky. So let's test this. Is that gonna be, I think that's okay. Just move on. Take some of this. So when you go back in perspective, what are the colors that leave first? So in the foreground, you're gonna have what colors, and then as you step back into the back of the painting that's farther away, an aerial perspective,
Start with the yellow and end up with purple.
yeah. Yellow goes first, leaves first, then red. I gotta work faster.
It's not time for the break you were talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing okay, but we can take a break. I might, if you guys need a break, go ahead and brown, that's fine too. That's not gonna bother me. And I'm doing okay, so. Because we end at 8:30, is that right?
Pretty much.
Roughly.
Okay. So I'm always trying to add at least a little bit of each color of primary in all of my colors, so that it's not too saturated or just fluorescent almost, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to gray it down, yeah.
That's fine.
Which one is that?
It's gone, the battery's going low.
Oh, on this.
I've got a power cord that can plug it in.
If you've got one, great.
There's an extra port on that adapter.
Can I share something that I learned from you?
Sure. For me?
From you.
Oh, yes.
I just was starting to paint, I think it was my first plein air in Spring City, I don't know, 3 summers ago.
Uh-huh.
And I was painting Naomi's shed. And I was so excited, it had all these colors, and I thought, oh, it's so, cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
I really keep painting.
Okay.
I brought it into the gallery because I had to grab something there, and you were there, and I said, oh, let me see, and I was so excited about it, and you said, great, and
You just press
and then
close.
the one thing you said was, I would really go back and maybe look at the values. And it was just completely what it needed. I just didn't have the shadow side dark enough and the light side. I
decent. That's great. Oh,
He gave up.
gave up. I can't finish it.
No, no, so you shouldn't have to try.
But it's logged in.